Hamid Musavi is Professor of Political Science at Tehran University, and he's joining us live from Tehran. Thank you very much for your time. So these talks are taking place just days after US officials said they want Iran not just to scale back its nuclear program, but to stop enriching uranium altogether. And Tehran has said that is a non-starter. So how do you assess the prospects for these talks?
So under the original nuclear deal, Iran was allowed to enrich uranium up to 3.67%. Right now, however, the Trump administration is demanding zero enrichment, and that does have the potential to lead to the collapse of the talks. That has been a red line for Iran for over 20 years now. And I think it's a red line that is very difficult to change, and perhaps the Supreme Leader will not allow that. One idea that has been thrown around as a possible solution is the establishment of a consortium of countries, perhaps made up of Iran, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, even the Americans, that would enrich uranium jointly. However, even regarding that idea, there is disagreement. Iran is insisting that the consortium should enrich uranium on Iranian soil. However, the Americans want it to be done in a third country.
Yeah.
Ultimately, however, I think the two sides do not want the talks to collapse.
It's interesting you're talking about the red line. How difficult is it from the Iranian perspective that the red line does seem to be shifting, because the American side saying that they don't want uranium to be enriched, even to the 3-point-something%. I mean, that is something that they are moving as well.
Right. So when the talks originally started, they made no such demand, and that's why there was so much optimism regarding the talks. However, in the past 2 weeks, we've heard from American officials that they want zero enrichment, which is essentially the Israeli position. On the Iranian side, however, we've seen no signs that they are willing to accept such a demand. We have to understand that it's also an issue of national pride for the Iranians. I mean, the nuclear program has developed for over 20 years, and what the Americans are demanding right now is a complete shutdown of that program. What the Iranian side is saying is that they are willing to limit that program. So we'll have to wait and see what happens.
And Donald Trump has repeatedly threatened Iran with military action if the two countries don't reach a deal, stressing that he won't allow Tehran to obtain a nuclear weapon. What impact, if any, do you see such threats having on the talks?
So we've heard that kind of rhetoric both from the Trump administration, but even more so from the Israelis. Nobody really knows if they are serious regarding that threat and they are actually planning to bomb Iran's nuclear facilities, or maybe perhaps it's psychological operation trying to pressure Iran to give more concessions on the negotiating table. Ultimately, though, time is of the essence, because the snapback mechanism expires in October of this year. So we'll have to have a deal by the end of the summer, or things will start to deteriorate very quickly.
Yeah, the snapback mechanism that you're mentioning is part of the last nuclear deal, isn't it, that Iran signed with 6 world powers, and Iran has held meetings with a European delegation recently because of the threat from the Europeans of using what's called the snapback mechanism, which is to reimpose UN sanctions on Iran. Do you think that that is putting any pressure on Iran?
I do think it's very important. I mean, the Europeans have told the Iranians that they are going to trigger that mechanism in August if a nuclear deal is not reached. However, the problem is we have to remember that the original deal took 2 years to negotiate. So having such a short timeline is complicating matters to a very far extent. One possible solution would be to reach a temporary deal and then negotiate towards a more comprehensive deal in the future.
Hamid Musavi joining us live from Tehran. Thank you very much for your analysis. We appreciate it.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.